Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Planet Zoo video. As you can see in the background, there are some elephants, and I think many of you have seen most of the screenshots already. However, I have done my best to watch basically all the videos available in the internet, in the entire internet, the whole world. I basically fulfilled the first article of Article 13, so I'm just kidding here. In this video, we are going to look at things that haven't been discussed that much. Actually, in fact, some of them haven't been discussed at all. And I did my best to, go through also articles and stuff. I'll drop them in the description below so you guys can also check them out. A huge thanks also here to the lady designer, because in her Discord, there's legit a great discussion going on. It's incredible how much infos are collected over there. I basically think that's the pretty much best informed space over here at the moment. However, I don't want to bother you too much with many of the screenshots because you've basically seen them on various articles. I will just point out some very interesting little bits and things over there that might be interesting for future infos we get to the game. However, let me just quickly announce I have no further information than anyone else has. There is only that we had a little bit of early access to create some videos to really boil up the heat today, the hype, which hopefully was created really greatly and was appreciated across all people, and this is what I really found interesting, that this worked that great. So big thanks to Frontier again to having us in to help them create a little bit of hype train here. However, I'm going to talk too much already over here. At the end of this video, for those of you who are interested, I'm going to do more of a little bit of an expectation summary and what I have found interesting from today overall, not really spending too much of an eye onto specific screenshots. However, let's start with this screenshot over here. There's, to be honest, not too much in it. Maybe the one interesting bit I wanted to point out is that next to the elephants, and by the way, I just wanted to mention that I forgot to implement the cursor last time, but this time the cursor should be viewable. I'm moving it around so you guys can see. However, I want to get my little pen again and pen around some things I wanted to mention. And you can see this, and let me just, why is that yellow? Holy crap, let me just please get that reddish. There we go. I wanted to mark down the position of the feet. Oh wait, this is not too nicely hinted. And you can see this also here and here. I'm not going to talk too much about the trunk here. Anyways, what you can see is, and this is some interesting bit I remember from a talk with some of the devs of Jurassic World Evolution, in fact, they spent an entire eternity making the animals, or the dinosaurs back then, move according to the terrain. And I was already mentioning that the terrain is more advanced here in Planet Zoo than it is in Jurassic World Evolution. What I can tell from the screenshot, and we're gonna have a look to this in the different other screenshots as well, you can really tell that they are not really going into the bottom. I mean, maybe these are kind of wisely chosen screenshots, but however, you can see that the trunk is going a little, by the way, thanks for mentioning what this thing is called, like, in the ground. The feet, however, they don't, which makes me believe that they really spend a good eye on how the entire animal is moving on the ground, and this really makes them move believable. And I'm really hoping that this game will not let me down on this opinion. So let's move on to the next screenshot, because as I said, there is not much more in it. You can see basically some people in the background and some nice grass and foliage everywhere, but there's basically not too much you haven't seen elsewhere. So let's go on with the next one. This is this little piece over here, and again, let me just, oops, I have to wait. Oh god, let me just quickly render all these, or raster all these levels. So as you can see, again, here we go, and let me just mark this down here as well. Again, the feet position is, or the paws, I should say, paws, is really incredible. You can really tell that this is lining up perfectly. This is really what I got out of here, out of this screenshot especially. Again, also mentioning, for those of you who haven't seen, there is a choo-choo train in the background, and I totally forgot to bring something in. Let me just quickly bring that in for you guys, because this is important to mention. Wait a second, where do I have this one? It is this one. Let me just drop that in. Here we go. So why am I putting that in? Well, it's because of one specific thing we have discussed this about, but I am gonna show you this train over here. And now, as you can see, if I click it away, you can see that this is not the same kind of train. This is a variant of a train, and for example, this looks a lot more like a little street train compared to a really great kind of more long distance train like that. I don't know if this is really a hint to kind of know that we will have different models for different purposes or for different sizes of a park. I don't know, but I found this a very interesting element here. However, this is again everything I can say to this specific screenshot, but there will be more interesting stuff at the end of the video, so please stick with me. Next up is this enjoyable thing over here, and there's a little bit in here what I wanted to mention. So first of all, you basically have all seen that we have the various benches over here. This is another nice style, what we have seen already in some of the other screenshots. We can see some nice variants of trees. I believe this is one of the I'm just mentioning this one here, the fences that we haven't seen too much in detail on the other screenshots, so I'm pretty happy that they showed it us a bit more in detail in this screenshot. Also, we have different colors of the bears, which also I think is a great addition, and yeah, well, it is one of the must-haves, to be honest. But that was a little bit of a different thing, which is more like a little nitbit, but let me just pay attention to this one over here and zoom in. As you might be able to tell from this view, that is Tiki Chiki from Planet Coaster, and or at least this is the Tiki Chiki art that is also used in Planet Coaster as a little art style for the peeps in the park, which brings me to the idea that they kind of share the same world, what eventually makes also a lot of sense, but I love that they bring in these little nits and bits. So maybe we will also see some of the brands featured here in the park. So how cool would it be to have also Chief Beef in here, or Tiki Chiki? That would be super cool. Also to exchange some new models maybe that we can get also in Planko, I don't know, but you know, this is the stuff what I really like to see. Also, I wanted to mention this guy over here. Let me just zoom in a bit more. To me this seems like, I don't know, I was about to say that this is normal stuff, but if I'm correct, I'm not too sure if so, but that looks like he's wearing a helmet or some kind of helmet. I don't know if that makes sense, or is it just a hat or so, but maybe this is not a normal stuff member. This could well be a security guard or something like that. I'm not quite sure why he should wear a helmet. Maybe we have too many violent people in the park. I don't know, or in the zoo, I should say. But yeah, well, it's something I was just facing. One other stuff I wanted to mention is this one over here. I don't really know if people have pointed that out. I'm not a big fan of it, but this is one of the floodlights we also have in Planet Coaster, which kind of confirms that we do also have the various lighting options, which is cool. They also confirmed in the press release that there will be also a piece-by-piece building, so we don't need to spend too much of an eye at guessing. I talked about that yesterday already, so the guessing game kind of is over since it's already confirmed, so we don't need to guess there. One other thing I wanted to mention is actually really simple, but it's for me this is pretty interesting, also important. We're gonna have a look onto this later with some different screens as well, but the trees are pretty tall. Some of the variants at least are. I know that the trees in Planko are also pretty tall, but they kind of start way earlier with the leaves kind of stuff, which would make the whole viewport a lot more difficult. So I love that they paid attention to this little bit, which is not that little, to be honest, because if you have trees that start having leaves too early on and too low in the ground, that would actually make viewports a lot more difficult, and I am not a big fan of not seeing the animals in the park. So yeah, let's jump over to the next screenshot and hurry up a little bit here, as I said, because I don't want to force this video to be too long. Since there is not too much new stuff for you guys in here, but we are coming to the new stuff. So maybe this little bit over here is a different variant of meat we can see. I wanted to point out, that's a nice segue, is that someone is pointing at the animal, which brings me to the function of viewports again, what I discussed yesterday quite a bit, so that we will also have interaction with like kind of windows and stuff. So I'm curious to see how that actually works in real life. Yes, we have a door over here, but you've seen that a million times, and yes, we have another variant of a fence over here, or a wall at least. This could very well be also a normal wall, to be honest. This doesn't need to be necessarily a a fence. So, well, that's everything I can say about this picture. There's not much more in it, apart from the fact that these are kind of nice textures everywhere around, and we have again lining the paws up with the ground pretty nicely indeed. But yeah, there's not too much more special stuff I can talk about in here. So, going on to the next one, and this is more or less, I guess, the most incredible screenshot in terms of what the engine and the game will look like. So yes, they're using DirectX 12, I guess it is, for rendering. I'm pretty sure this is the NVIDIA technology, or is it NVIDIA technology? I'm not quite sure if it is, but this is kind of how fur is rendered, and this looks just stunning. I don't know if it was Tomb Raider or which kind of game this featured first, but yeah, it looks awesome. But here are some things I wanted to point out, and I'm quite sure that not everyone has pointed that out. Actually, I've not really listened to anyone pointing that out. So first of all, people were guessing if these are snow effects or actual weather. We know that the game will feature weather, but let me just mark this area. As you can see, the sky looks very dusty indeed. It looks whitish. The overall picture is very desaturated. It's very whitish. It's more, it has a way more bluish tint to it, you know? And then there's one bit I wanted to point out, and let me just zoom in a little bit. As you can see, and this is for me pretty interesting also in terms of Planet Coaster and other games, actually not other games, but the game in fact on its own, but also for Planko in the future potentially, or a Planko 2 if so. It's not that this is a snow biome model. You can tell from the two trees that the level of snow in the leaves is different. So you can definitely tell that this is more kind of snowy-ish than on this hand side, where it's a lot more greenish, right? And also in the background you can totally tell that these are a lot more whitish than this one over here. That makes me believe that we will have a smooth transition between seasons. And also we have a very much more difficult approach on how we will deal with different biomes. In fact, we will have weather as a gameplay and management aspect, which leaves me with the belief that this management aspect will a lot better than what we have seen in Planet Coaster. What kind of is also something the devs have already said in the press release, and also in some of the interviews today that are across various gaming pages, websites. They said that they did hear the feedback of Planet Coaster being a little bit low on the management side, a little bit weak, that they really especially want to address that issue. So I'm highly believing that this is a good way to implement. And also, I am not quite sure. I know it looks a bit more. I thought this was a palm tree, but it's not. It's definitely something else. But also, what I wanted to point out is that the rocks and boulders over here, also covered in snow, seem to transition, because this one has way less snow on top of them than this one has. So quite a bit of interesting stuff in this image. But nevertheless, we are going on to the next one. And in this screenshot, there are not too many special things. I just wanted to point out two-ish things. This is the first one again, as always. Let me just point that out. Okay, you can't really tell too much from this, but it's definitely the way what I mentioned. I wanted to zoom in a tad bit over here, and this is my beloved Baobab Tree. I love it. This is so iconic. I also love it from the wonderful Animal Kingdom of the Walt Disney World in Florida. And I really seriously love how this appeared. So yeah, I just loved seeing that in one of the actual screenshots, and not only in the trailer. Oops, why did I just try to take that color? I just wanted to zoom out. However, I think this is pretty much everything we can talk about. I mean, let alone that this looks fantastic. Like the, oh, wow. Oh god, look at the level of detail. This is seriously incredible. I'm not too sure what's going on with the depth of field here. By the way, it looks a little bit weird with this zebra also in focus, but that's not something I really wanted to look at. What is really incredible to look at here is the super awesome skin cover. And there is one more thing I wanted to mention here. I'm not entirely sure if I'm completely right on this point, but if I am looking onto the stripes of the zebra, we can definitely tell that they don't share the same texture, which makes them unique looking. And I hope that this is at least kind of a algorithm created pattern or whatnot, because you can clearly tell that, for example, this little bit over here, why is that white again? What's happened with my color again? Just go back to pinkish, there we go. So here you can see this little bit going this way. And if we go up here, you can see that there is this little kind of notch in here, and the iPhone would be very happy about that, but I'm not, but I'm happy to see that. So you can definitely tell that this is not the same. The same goes also for the eye. If you can tell from over here, like this entire thing looks a lot different than what this looks like. Obviously, yes, this is the left eye, this is the right eye, but I kind of was wondering if it's just a mirrored texture, but it seems not to be. And if we try to zoom in a tad bit more, we can't. I don't know if we can. Maybe. Let me see. I don't know if we can, but tell from. No, we can't really tell too much in it. But yeah, I thought this was the best image to kind of show you how they share not the same texture, but it seems to be like a created one. I really dig that. It's super awesome to see that they go into this level of detail, and honestly, I wouldn't have expected anything else. But yeah, just mentioning that this is happening. So let's go to the next tad bit, because I put that just behind the other one to kind of underline what I've just started to talk about. You can see again, there's another zebra in here, and I don't know, we can actually see that this is the same zebra because it has this little notch in here again, whilst we can't really tell if this is the other one, but I'm pretty sure it is. So this might be, or for sure this is the same enclosure, just from another angle, but it's super awesome. This is the little bit of detail I admire in these kind of games, because you can actually tell without having a UI or a name or whatever that this is the same zebra you have seen before. So I love this little fact and this little bit over here that supports how great this edition is. Apart from that, we have this guy over here having this. I have no clue how this is called in English. I have no clue how this is called in German. Actually, I have, but in real life, I feel this is more or less like the most useless piece ever, because you're just shifting mist from, not mist, but just like rubbish from one point to the other. So it's not really doing anything. Not too sure what this actually does in the game. I was trying to figure out what this could be. It's not really lawnmower. It's more like just kind of air. Maybe it's like a vacuumizer or something that is sucking in the grass, what can be mown. I don't know. It could be something like that. However, let's skip to the next one, because again, in this other one, there was not too much interesting stuff in. However, in this one, there's also not too much interesting stuff. I'm fully honest here. I tried to search my ass off here. I really tried to. The only thing I can point out what other people kind of didn't is that this is one of the sole vegetarian, if that makes sense, or herbivore, to be in the Jurassic World Evolution speak. This is kind of a vegetarian feeder. However, the feeders look like pretty similar. There's not that meat sticking out because it's just a little bit of this high over here, but nothing too fancy. I guess this is a kind of different wall we haven't seen yet. But yeah, it's pretty much all I can tell. That this thing looks, again, absolutely stunning is by no means absolutely just the truth. But I can't really talk too much about it apart from the fact that it's sleeping, which is nice. It's resting, so that's super awesome. But there's not too much, and I don't want to artificially make this even longer since there's no need for it. So let's move on to the next one. And here we go. There's a little bit more in it. So again, yes, this is the same enclosure we've seen in one of the previous images, and there are two things in here. So I don't know what happened, but I was talking to Sylph about that yesterday evening, and we have a long discussion about how weather would affect the game, and one of the most incredible and most difficult things to realize with rain is to tell from a programming standpoint, to tell the rain which areas have to be affected and which not. So given the example that it's starting to rain and we have animals that love rain and go outside and deal with a little bit of rain, we also have animals that are a little bit more sensible and they want to go inside. Now, this seems to be pretty simple, right? But this simple thing inside for a programmed weather is pretty difficult, pretty damn difficult, because the engine needs to know when there is something inside, especially when you can create stuff on your own. With Jurassic World Evolution, that wasn't a big deal because you were just putting down fixed buildings and you could tell the building to be an inside building, full stop. But how do you tell a piece to be affected by rain from one side and the inside isn't? Because the inside is not a fixed space in that kind of sense, it is a dynamically created space. And why am I talking about this? Well, if we look at this screenshot, you can definitely tell that various pieces of this area, a lot of pieces, are affected by rain. You can see that the drop VFX over here, you can see that the fur and the overall animal is looking a bit more reflective. Let me just point that out. You can see it over his eyebrows over here. You can pretty much see that over here and on the ears. So they're kind of looking a lot more wet than they look normally. The fur isn't that, dried and fuzzy as it is before. So it's pretty wet in here indeed. And this is cool because they seem to be affected. But if they want to move inside, they have, and this is the interesting bit about this, they have this area over here. And now what really is interesting to me is how this will work and if this will work. We have this cave and you can tell there are some lamps in here, and this is definitely done with the terrain tool. So given the fact that the terrain tool seems to affect areas to be dry and not, does it mean we can not only use preset enclosures or let's say sheds, but we can also create sheds on our own? That would be super amazing. And if the animals then again in the next bit actually recognize buildings as a shed, which you've done with piece by piece building, that would be super amazing and something I honestly haven't thought about too much. For me it was a fact given that we will get different shed variants and we're going to use it. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but it makes total sense in my eyes now that everything we build within an enclosure can act like something the animals can use, and to fulfill their different needs, to be able to enlarge the sheds and the capacity of them naturally by piece by piece building. So really cool detail in this screenshot that brought me to think about the whole thing on a completely new level. But now we are getting into the last screenshot I want to discuss with you today, and man, there are things in it. Pooh. This is the exact same location we had in the first screenshot I was discussing yesterday. I'm going to show you exactly which area I'm talking about. So what we've seen yesterday was pretty much from this viewport over here. It was something like that, right? And you could have seen this in the far back as well. So interesting. Though I want to mention that this tree wasn't there, that this cover over here wasn't existing, and a few other things haven't been existing as well. So that makes me wonder, what is this and why has this been changed? So first of all, I can totally dig the fact that they did change this tree over here, because then it would have been a bit more difficult to spot all the animals around here. Maybe it has been here, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't. It would have been pretty much in the way. But apart from that, a lot of other things have happened. So let me go a bit more in detail here. And the first thing I want to point out is that we have a water pond over here, as you can see. And we also have a water pond over here, as you can see. And we have another water pond down here. And we have also another one down here, a little bit of a pond. There's just like a little puddle. So what you can tell is that the water is different. It is bluish, it is brownish, light brownish, it's very brownish, and it's again very brownish. It might not seem as a big deal because we could also choose variants of water in Planet Coaster as well. But here's the thing, management aspect again. Do we need to make sure to clean water? Is that a hint on the fact that maybe this area has been cleaned, and maybe this is why there is a wall in here and this is not clean while this is clean? And we can clearly see, and let me drag that in again, in yesterday's screenshot, here we go, let boom, there we go. And yeah, there was no tree in the middle, it was only this one. As you can pretty much see from this screenshot, this was bluish. As you can see, blue, blue, again blue, and if I deactivate this again, it's not blue. It's definitely not blue, and it's also not how the lighting works. It's never ever. That's never ever the same kind of tint. However, this area here is definitely the same tint. And if we activate this again, you can pretty much see, yes, there is a tree missing, also over here, but this is the same water area, right? It's the same flow of water. You can tell that this is exactly the same. So I'm wondering if the water gets more dirty and you have to make sure that the water gets clean again, which I think is also a superb addition to it, to the game, and as a management aspect of parks. And I don't know if this is even combined with costs for water refreshment systems. I don't know if we need to build in, like for example in City Skylands, where you need to put all the pipes below ground, which are actually just like an overlay. You do not see them at all. It's just an element of management, and if that would be a thing in here, that would be awesome as well. And it's not a bad thing to look over to what the competition does, or actually it's another category, so it's not really a competition. And now let's move on to the next bit I just mentioned. So from yesterday's screenshot, and let me just, oops, again, wrong. That was again the wrong tool. So from yesterday's screenshot, if we looked at this looked pretty much like a prefab shed over here. But now, as we can see, and again, as you can see, I have put all the screenshots in an order, so it does make sense for you guys to follow. This area over here, let me just move there, please. Here we go. This is the same shed we have just seen, right? Why? Oh, I'm not in the right picture. So this is the shed. Oh god, and it's again the wrong color. It's because I've used the pipette. Here we go. This is the same shed, but it's not. I mean, yes, it is the same, but it's using the terrain and just stick some, I would say, these are pretty much just wooden pillars or like trunks, whatever. That's all it. I mean, that is super awesome, isn't it? This is the stuff we need. This is the kind of freedom which we really, really, really need. By the way, this elephant seems to poop a lot. Again, I mean, that's pretty much obvious that we need poop, but yeah, just confirmation that we'll have poop in the park. I just saw that to mention, but it's not a big deal, because there's way more important stuff in this screenshot I want to talk about with you guys. Yeah, yesterday I was mentioning already that it could be that these trees are kind of growables. I kind of want to step back a little bit, because these seem to be just kind of this model of a tree. To be completely honest with you, I just wanted to clarify that I'm pretty much willing to admire that I was wrong and admit that I was wrong. However, I wanted to point out something else that I saw on Yonti's video from Geekism. He was actually also stumbling across this area over here, so let me just draw that area out. And for me, this area has two important things in it. He was talking about these elephants as being potentially statues. Okay, could be. I'm pretty much sure that they are only statues, because otherwise it doesn't make too much sense, I thought, until I was kind of trying to create a puzzle. If I'm correct, this is also an elephant statue on the roof of this thing over here. Let me just get away with all this bullshit. Oops, that was one too much. And make this a little bit more thinner, because that's actually in the way, which I don't really like too much. Here we go. So let me just draw this area out for a second. And now, when this is some sort of elephant statue, and this looks pretty much like a shop. You have this shade over here where people could stand down. I don't know what this is, but this down here could also well be kind of a board or like a sign. And maybe these are actual elephants to touch and interact with. And we know that they said in the press release that this game will feature to bring animals back into the wildlife, which I love, because this is something I didn't want to mention in yesterday's videos. I didn't want to join the discussion about whether zoos are good quite yet. I will talk about that in the future. Let me just point out that not every zoo is bad by its origin. There are zoos that are pretty bad, but there are also zoos that are super important for the actual wildlife and are saving actual lives. So if this is kind of a station where we have actual elephants to touch, you first of all would say, okay, please don't touch the animals because, you know, they don't need to be touched by people. But maybe this is kind of an advertisement to collect money to kind of fulfill what is really destined, and that is bringing these animals back into the wildlife. So I could very well imagine that this is a combination of actual animals, maybe also statues, I don't know, but for the sake of having an advertisement over here that kind of leads people to spend money to make sure that these animals have their own rights to live a free life in the future. That would be super, super, super dope. Really dope, really dope. Okay, but now there's one last interesting bit I wanted to know. Actually two. Let me start with this area over here. So it's really hard to tell from this image, but I again tried to, there we go. So as you can see, there is the station building in here, and this is again the same choo-choo train we have seen just a few minutes before, and you can also see that the entrance is exactly the same like in Planet Coaster, and people are queuing up, so you're also able to build queues. Super nice little detail over here. I like that this acts pretty much very similar. However, I feel like the groups are roaming a bit more natural in here. Seems to be 3 groups next to each other. I don't really have Planko in my mind right now, but I feel like this is not happening too often. However, I wanted to mention one last thing, which is not really viewable in here, but maybe we can take this area down here as inspiration. What I found from a little article that also again was mentioned in the Discord of the lady designer, there was mentioned that there will be animals in the game like spiders. So you know, spiders are not that great, right? And I'm just going to quote that from an article that is quoted saying, "The stuff pretty content too. There will be over 50 animals for players to look after in the final game, from big guy like elephants, giraffes and lions to small affair like peacocks, lemurs and spiders. Yes, in Planet Zoo you have to keep spiders happy." That brings me to a very interesting point, which we can't really see in that image here. But to keep spiders happy, we need to build a very small enclosure. And if there's one thing that we always complained about in Planet Coaster is the lack of small pieces. I'm really curious how they solve that issue. Maybe we get a special viewport, I don't know, which scales everything down and creates kind of a miniature enclosure. Maybe, and what is kind of the stuff I think it will be, but I hope not to be, is we kind of get a toolbox system for aquariums / terrariums, so that you do have like an empty terrarium and you can buy a lot of elements that kind of create the spider enclosure, somewhat like a mini game. I don't know if that makes sense, because on the other hand side, I don't know if I want to go that finicky to build a small enclosure. Well, no, I won't. I'm pretty sure I won't. But, well, I don't know if they go that much into detail. So it's pretty interesting why they haven't shown that yet, but they will effectively show that in the future, which leads me to my last bit. And before we go into what I've spotted, we haven't seen these kind of small animals like spiders in any of the material yet. And what we haven't seen as well is sea life. And yes, you could be very curious if sea life will make it to the final game. And you potentially are right to question that. But I have found a hint in this screenshot right here that leads me to the guess that we will have something like that in the final game. And why is this? So let me just show you something. First of all, I wanted to show you this area over here, and especially that little bit down here, this one. Why is this interesting? Why am I just pointing at a weird section of terrain? Well, for those of you who know Planet Coaster, they know that pathwork and terrain interaction sucks. Really it does, so please don't mind my words. It really is a struggle. And it seems to create the same little issue here that we have in Planko. You can't build water directly to the borders of a pathway. It's simply impossible. It always creates this weird terrain thing, because the path forces the terrain to exist at least 1 meter next to the pathway. And to make sure that this is not a kind of coincidental placement over here, you can also look onto this area, which is totally the same. And I was actually thinking, that makes things a lot more difficult. Again, same thing goes for over here, having a border over here as well, which also makes natural borders, which is great, but it kind of creates this weird border in general again, which makes me feel this is not 100% fixed, I thought. But then I saw this, and from what I can tell over here is, see, that we do have room. This was too close. Let me just zoom out a tad bit. What is happening? Where did I click? Hello, game. Could you please just go down here? Thank you. Game, picture, Photoshop, whatever. So I looked at this a long time to really make sure that I'm not going to tell anything weird here. But I am sure by now this is a border and this is a pathway, and it's, as you can see, it's going in here and creates that notch over here and goes back in here. So it is, and this is water. You can see that's the water over here, and it's connected directly to it. And if you look a little bit more close, this is also filling in to this level, and the same goes over here. I don't know, and I can't really tell from the perspective, but I'm at least curious to see if this is lowered down a little bit. I don't know if they go down a tad bit over here or not. The terrain over here makes me believe it could be, and why is that different color again? God damn it. This terrain over here makes me believe that it goes a bit down, I don't know. But what I really wanted to talk about is you can actually have a direct interaction, water to pathway, just separated by what looks like a window. And this makes me believe we will get sea life indeed. Because then it makes total sense that you will be able to create a big pond, which is the whole... So let me bring that to another point. In the past zoo games, you always needed to create a specific enclosure for water animals. So for mammals, for, as I said, water animals. I forgot the name. Aquatic animals, whatever. Yeah, aquatic life, sea life. You know what I mean. And this kind of enclosure acted like an entire thing. You can't really build too much about it. You can put stuff underwater to fulfill their needs. You could kind of make a stage where like the trainers are on, and you know, all this kind of stuff is in there. But it always was a bit forced to maintain a weird look to it. In this case, it doesn't, because you could pretty much go and fill the entire enclosure with water. Boom, you would have like complete enclosure filled with water and just put some dolphins in. Or you just fill in like, let's say 70% and then build a nice rock structure, which then is a natural border to it, and make the entire thing look again way better than it would with kind of this forced enclosure, which also would lead to the fact that this would all go way better hand in hand with having a way more natural looking zoo. So you could, for example, share the same aquarium for various animals, which would be pretty hard with the way how it was dealt with in the old games. So I'm really curious to see what this comes up with, the game comes up with, and trust me, I'm going to make further analysis as soon as we have more material to us. And please bear in mind, I'm not as quick as other people might be. For several reasons, I don't have that much time at hand, and in comparison to what I did with other games, I try to research my stuff better than I have before. Not saying that anyone else doesn't, but I don't have the time to, so I need to research on my own, and I don't know too much about it in advance, so I need to take the time and look things up and make sure that I don't talk shit. And yeah, that's about it. Now for the last couple of minutes of this video, I don't want to make this too late. It's already 40 minutes, so just forget what I said. Holy crap. My first opinion of the game, or actually opinion is way too far-fetched because I haven't seen anything moving yet, but the first initial thought I had, oh my god, this is a zoo game in the shape of Planet Coaster. But looking at all the screenshots, it's way more than this, and I'm really hoping they take the step away from Planet Coaster. Yes, it looks pretty similar, which makes sense. It's a new installment, it's a franchise started over here, but it looks so super promising, and I am really freaking hyped. I'm more hyped than I was with Planet Coaster announcement, which is due to the fact that I didn't know how great Frontier was back then. I know they were great, but I got to know them even more, so, well, this time I'm super hyped and I can't wait to find out more about the game. I hope you guys feel the same. And to end this video, I really wanted to ask you one simple thing. What's your favorite animal? What is the animal you don't want to miss in the final release of the game? And why is it your special animal? Do you have a special kind of relationship to it for various reasons? I don't know. You could come up with a dog or cat. I think that's pretty boring, because let's not talk about these animals you have at home. Let's talk about the more advanced animals you won't see at home. However, I dreamed of having a dolphin as a pet when I was a small kid. I actually drew a house that would be capable of having a dolphin swim through all the rooms and be with me for all the time. Architecture wise, this was a pretty solid build, to be honest. But yeah, that was just coming out of the mind of a 6-year-old who kind of loved dolphins back then. And since then, dolphins are still my favorite animals. Yes, I know, I'm called Camel and I love them, don't worry, but dolphins will be forever and always my favorite animal. I think at latest, after I've been swimming with them and having had literally the best 60 minutes of my life. If I can do this anytime soon again, I will do, but for me it's a bit difficult because I always have to make sure that they are living in freedom and they are not forced to swim with people, and a lot of things I have to make sure that they are, you know, dealt with right, and yeah, whatever. So guys, this is the right point to end this video. I hope you enjoyed the further analysis, and I hope you had the time to stick with me for such a long time. Yeah, hope to share more stuff with you soon. Tomorrow it's finally going on with Planet Coaster, so please be hyped and stick with me. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get all the notifications about future content of Planet Zoo, Planet Coaster, Jurassic World Evolution, and all that other stuff. And make sure to activate notifications as well. Also, for those of you who have subbed already, you know, YouTube is broken. Please make sure it's not too much broken for you and hit that bell. That makes sure that you guys see my stuff, because I'll be back with you here, more active than ever. And yeah, I can't wait to share more stuff with you. Until then, have a great day, guys, and see you next time. Bye.